joining us for our first conversation are representatives from the Belize National Teachers Union. And we have with us here the president of the BNTU, Ms. Elena Smith, and also Keisha Flowers, who is the executive secretary of the BNTU. Ladies, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
So we're kind of talking about the end of the year and the year in review, we can term. And it certainly has been an eventful year for the BNTU. So maybe we can just start off the conversation by perhaps, Elena, you can give us your perspective. How would you describe how 2019 has been for the union?
Roller coaster?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good word to use. It has not been too much in our favor, if I should put it that way. We've had a lot of challenges with the ministry, and in particular, if you would recall, in July of this year, the memo that went out about renewing of license and then signing of contracts. And so that has been the biggest issue we've been facing up to today. We still continue with that, and our teachers are, as you might expect, not satisfied with what is happening. Despite the fact that the rules do speak to a time limit for a license and having a contract and those kinds of things, it's the unanswered questions that have them concerned as it relates to signing a contract, because I suppose as an attorney you know that contracts are binding documents and you have to be able to read and understand the fine print. And so those can be used against you. They can be beneficial, but they can be used against you as well. So that has been one of the greatest challenges that we faced this year in terms of, despite having legal advice in the first instance, our members still have a lot of concerns because some of them still believe that there is much more that needs to be answered, and that we should not be accepting signing of contracts or renewing of license. And we say to them, we have a duty to advise them as per the rules. And so we might not agree with what is being done right now, but we have to understand too that the rules are in place and those are what we are to abide by at this time. So until there is a change, then we can do other things.
It's important to clarify though that the BNTU has in fact been on board with the licensing process from the beginning. I mean, you encouraged teachers to go about and getting their licenses. The challenge has been this year, if I recall, in being able to keep up with some of the commitments that come along with it. Is that the case?
Well, the issue really and truly was the fact that we knew that, or we know it's in the rules. And we knew that it would come eventually.
Yes.
But because it was done so suddenly, there was no time for preparing or that kind of thing. And I do believe that maybe some teachers were not seriously looking at the fact that one of these days, these rules will be enforced. And I think that is the issue, because they were not preparing themselves for the 120 hours for the 5-year period, because it has not happened in the last almost 20 years. And so, you took it for granted that, okay, well, they have not done it, so it won't happen, so I won't bother.
And additionally, so because of the speed in which it's happening, then there's different information coming from different areas, causing even more confusion. So that has been a challenge for us as well.
But the continuous development, the training, for example, training hours that have to be put in, especially during the summer. I remember a last conversation that you were talking about the fact that there wasn't a specific formula used to understand that if I attend this workshop or attend this training, that it will equate to X amount of hours towards my commitment.
And that's one of the huge frustrations that our teachers face. Because every so often you're told something different. And so we've asked for clarity. How do you go about calculating hours? What's the formula? Give us a formula that our teachers can understand that if I attend this workshop, I'm going to get 3 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, that kind of thing. And we have not been able to get that, yet we are hearing what teachers say to us, well, we've been told that if you do a one-day workshop, you won't get any credit for it. You have to do 2 days or more. But again, those are things that
But where's that information coming from?
Right. We don't have those things in writing that we can share with our members, but yet when a workshop is called and the require or they request hours, that's what they're being told, I suppose, by TSC, no, sorry, the TEDS, right? And so it's confusing because how can I keep a record of my hours if I don't know how many hours I should be getting for a day, 2 days, 3 days a week, that sort of thing.
And an additional challenge is what is being offered. Because when you look at what is there every year for teachers to access, it's a challenge to actually acquire those hours.
Yeah.
Especially secondary school teachers.
Right.
They are in the worst situation.
Well, I mean, I guess that kind of begs the question as to how involved, or, you know, is there enough, or teachers or the union given enough chance to give input and follow through when when challenges like this do arise, and at the end of the day, how functional, I guess, is or can these demands, or not demands, but can these concerns be addressed in an effective way? How are we doing then with that?
Well, I think we are all too familiar with the word consultation.
Yes.
And we know what that means, right? I come and I tell you and that's it. It's over. You could say whatever you want to say, you could share your concerns, but at the end of the day, I do what I want to do. That has been sort of the practice that we've seen. We have invited Mrs. Garbott from TEDS to come and present to us, you know, because again of the same concerns. Present to us, you know, how you go about doing this. What are the things that are acceptable as CPDs? You know, how would you give those hours? You know, all of these things. And we were promised on her return that she would have sent us, you know, the format document to give us all of those information. Well, the ministry keeps talking about partners and partnerships and collaboration and all of these things. And when we try to do these things by inviting them to come and share with us, so that we can give our teachers correct information, then they're either too busy, out of the country, or when they come and we expect a response from them after they return, then you have to be behind them begging and begging and begging and begging. We are still awaiting that formal document that specifies how we calculate our hours and what type of sessions would be accepted as CPD sessions. Because you can go online, but when I go online and I do a course, for example, let's say it's a 1 day or 2, maybe even a week, that kind of thing. What am I to submit to them for them to determine my hours? Do I submit my certificate? Do I submit my course outline? What do I submit? So these are questions that teachers have that we don't have the answers to. But we have to do CPD sessions. So teachers go and get these things done without knowing, is it beneficial? Am I going to be accredited for it? All of those
And to be
things.
fair, teachers have been doing their trainings in the summer without even the thought of CPD hours before. But now when it's a requirement to meet that target of 150 hours, that's where you're trying to distinguish how much of what you've done actually counts towards that. Now,
and as a union, we ourselves have tried to give CPD sessions to our teachers. We've approached TEDS. I believe on one occasion they've agreed to give us hours.
Because they have to actually, it's almost like accredit
right,
the training.
Right.
Yeah.
One of their concern is that we cannot be giving CPD sessions when they're giving CPD sessions, which for us is you know.
The teachers get 1 month off.
Right, they get a month off, and the sessions that they provide are not near enough. So we try to supplement by offering to our teachers, but it's a frustrating process just to get those hours accredited to them.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that, because I'm trying to understand how a teacher would be able to meet that. We have how many teachers? How many thousands?
Over 6,000.
6,000 teachers.
Right.
But not all of them though would qualify, because it's only teachers who have a full license
Okay.
who qualify for CPD hours.
How many teachers would have a full license?
Probably over maybe 4,000 or so.
Right.
4,000
Just about.
teachers. 1 month, which is 4 weeks, that's about 20 days, right? Even if you do full 20 days, I'm trying to understand how you'd be able to cater to almost 4,000 teachers in just that 1 month block.
But it's not a month, Marlene, because remember now, ministry has 2 weeks in August.
Yeah.
Then you have a period for management, you have a period for the school. So it's not the entire month.
So it's 2 weeks.
It's like
Right.
2 weeks,
10
right.
days.
So,
Right.
correct. So hence the reason we said to them, you give some and we give some. That
Yeah.
if you can accommodate 100 teachers and we 100 teachers, we have 200 teachers covered in those 2 weeks as opposed to only 100 being covered. And then when the management does their workshops, hopefully they apply for CPD hours and those teachers will get a few more. So, you know, it's not that we want to compete with them.
Yeah.
We would just be assisting in allowing our teachers to be able to have access to these CPD sessions.
So the thing is, this issue was actually kicked down the road because it was a very pertinent issue in the summer when you were informed that it would have been enforced, the 150 hours requirement. You brought this very same concern to the ministry, and essentially they gave an extension. They said they would look at it. What's happened since then, from summer till now?
Well, so initially we had said to our teachers, don't proceed with the renewal.
Yeah.
And then, as I said earlier, we sought legal advice, and then we gave them the go ahead and say, okay, proceed with applying for a renewal and signing a contract, because two of them go hand in hand based on the rules. We met with our teachers, we've met with the ministry, and we've been raising all of these concerns, you know, concerns of tenure, concerns of benefits, you know, am I being a contract worker now? You know, all of these things we've raised with the ministry. And we kept saying to them, let us hold on this thing because there are too many unanswered questions. Let's hold on, hold off. And they refused to do so, and, you know, they kept with the process. Only to find out that 2 days before the deadline, a memo went out to say, halt the contracts. Now, we have been saying this to the ministry from the inception. The process is unclear, there are too many questions, let us wait. So I don't know if it is that maybe they don't want it to seem as if though, because the union is putting these things forward, you know, we are halting. And so they waited this long to do so. But it ended up exactly what we have been asking for. Let us wait, clarify all of these concerns, and then we proceed with a clear process. So now we are having a meeting with them on Monday. The meeting on Monday, they are doing some amendments to the education rules now. And we're aware of 2 of those amendments. One that has to do with the Christmas break. You remember that controversy is there. And then the other that has to do with contracts. So we are meeting on Monday, today is Thursday, and we don't have the draft amendment as yet. So we don't have any idea as to what really and truly the amendment will look like for us to be able to do justice to presenting our side of the case on Monday.
Which goes back to exactly what we said.
Do you even know what's on the agenda for the amendment?
There'll be a consultation process, and it's just to tell us this is what it is, and then we move on from there.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my question, because it's because it seems to me that it's like, how is it that you'll be able to meaningfully contribute to the meeting, take the, you know, suggestions or concerns of the teachers of the union, so that if, you know, changes or clarifications need to be made, they can happen, but it seems that you're not in the strongest position to do that.
Yeah, and just yesterday evening, we spoke to Dr. Baba and we said, you know, we are awaiting the draft because we need to do some revision. If it is that you say we are partners and you want to do something meaningful, then provide us with the documentation as early as possible. Give us a chance to do a proper review, that at the end of the day, when we get there and it is okay with us, we can genuinely say we support. Because we are not just saying we don't agree just for disagreeing sake.
You're a membership organization.
Right. And it is not my position that I take there. Our branch executives have to hear from their members too. And so the time is very short for us to be doing these things. Teachers work all day. We can't take a time off to say, okay, we'll call a meeting today to review the amendments. And you can't get an attorney by the snap of a finger. Because you know that. We have one to help us review. We were to meet yesterday, but she is busy. These things happen. Unless you have an attorney on retainer, you might be able to have them when you need them, but, you know, if you just pick up the phone and call and say we needed to do something for us, you have to wait because they're busy. So
and it's not like we even have something to present to the attorney to say, okay, do some research in this on this and give us some feedback.
But amending the education rules, because of what you're speaking about, I mean, you're talking about the legal aspect of it, it's because it's binding, you know, that the teachers will be bound to it. And you don't have the actual amendments, hard copies or soft copies, to say what it's going to be. But have you been told informally as to what is going to be on the agenda, what they're looking at in terms of being able to adjust? Is it only the CPD hours? Is it going to be more?
We were only told that there are going to be 4 amendments. 1, Christmas break. 2, contracts. What about those?
And 3 and 4?
We don't know.
We don't know.
You're operating like house meeting now?
Right. So we are aware now of the matter with the Christmas break because, as you know what occurred earlier. The way the rules are written, this year's Christmas break would have been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we said it has always been 3 weeks, and so we will not accept 2 weeks. And so a memo was sent out to say it will be 3 weeks. So apparently the advice was that the memo goes against the rules, and so it is illegal now to just say the rules say 2 weeks. Well, not specifically, but the way it's worded, it will give you 2 weeks, and now you are saying take 3 weeks. That is illegal. So we have to amend that portion of the rules now to be in sync with the memo that was sent out. And so we believe that that is the purpose of the Christmas break amendment. In terms of the contract, we can't say exactly what that will be. Whether they are going to put something in place that will say, you know, you don't have to sign contracts every 5 years, or whether it will say that your contract will cover all of your years, we don't know what it will say. So all we were able to do yesterday was to review the rules, look at every aspect that speaks to contracts, and see what those say, what are the concerns that we have on those currently, and then what change would we accept as a union. So that when we get to the meeting now, we have at least a sort of framework as to what we can accept and what we won't accept.
Or that you do your homework,
Right.
and prepare to at least ask or get clarification on the motives or what the expectations are for the amendments.
Unfortunately though, directly after our meeting, there will be a meeting with the NCE and the NCT VET, which are the 2 bodies which will sign off.
NC?
So, National Council for Education.
Okay.
And so, even if we go there with an entire laundry list of our concerns at a 9 o'clock meeting, by 10:30 they're meeting with 2 other bodies who will be the bodies signing off.
Approve it.
To approve.
Right.
So you're not being consulted, you're being informed.
Basically.
Well, that begs, and then that also begs the question as to what, you know, how effective is the consultation and as a means to actually addressing the concerns of the union?
Right. You know, how serious is the ministry in terms of partnering with us and fully going through these issues so that they don't come back to haunt us. And then at the end of the day, when the union takes action, you hear, oh, but you're not working with us because, you know, we've met with you. And that's not how you do things. You have to have meaningful consultations, not just come and tell me, this is what we want to do because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So, you know, we will see what will be the outcome. It is
You've been told that you'll get the amendments before?
Yes.
The proposed amendments?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So we are hoping that, you know, in our discussions on Monday that, you know, maybe they would, we understand that the Christmas break one has to go through before the end of the school year because of the legalities of it. But, so that might not be an issue for us in terms of the reasoning behind it and depending on how it is worded.
Yeah.
The issue with contracts now, we have too many questions, too many concerns, and we think that, you know, maybe they should push it back a bit. You know, hold off on it until we can get all of these issues sorted out and we can have a clear understanding, and then we proceed from there to the amendment.
And the fundamental issue that needs to be resolved is the formula that is involved in the CPD hours.
Because that has to do,
that's a requirement
portion
tied
of.
to your contract.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So if I have 149, you know, and I've done more time than somebody else who has 150, I might not be able to sign my contract or get my license
Get
renewed.
your license
Right.
renewed. Yeah.
Right, and that is cause for termination. So
Yeah.
imagine I have 35 years of teaching experience and I am unable to get 120 hours in a 5-year period.
Yeah.
No fault of mine.
Yeah.
You know, I attend everything that they offer and I still
Don't have
can't get
enough hours. Yeah.
120.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need to clarify, because you know more than anyone else that there are high expectations placed on teachers, and because you're molding young minds, and you know, you don't want to. I don't think that it's a matter, from my understanding, that teachers aren't attending these sessions. It's just that they're attending, and you don't know how much it actually adds up to
What is worth.
before the time for renewal of license.
And in some cases, not even being able to get into the session.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is that the rules are very clear in that the ministry should have a database, a record of us and our hours that we
Yeah.
accumulate.
Yeah.
But the records that they have isn't accurate. And so for this renewal process, we had to go in and get our records. And so I got mine. And when I looked at mine, I have some missing sessions that I attended, and those are not accounted for. So if they are to be keeping my record, and you don't give me something that says, for this session you got 40 hours, for this one you got 5 hours, that I could keep my own record,
Yeah.
then how do I go in now? And if I go to a session and I'm not given a certificate, for example,
That's
what
what
do I
I was
use?
gonna ask, yeah.
What do I use to come and say, Marlene, you forgot to add this, I attended this one as well.
Yeah.
So this would give me another 20, so now I am over my 120.
Yeah.
I don't have that. So again, we've been saying the processes are not clear and things are not properly in place.
And even if I'm a teacher and I attended a training last year and I never did check the schedule to see what's accredited, what's not, what will contribute towards my hours, maybe I invested a week in learning how to recognize learning disabilities in children. A useful tool for me in the
Right.
classroom, but maybe it never carried any hours.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't have known that ahead of time. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
So while I did the training, if it wasn't, they're never labeled, or from what I understand, they're not labeled. You get this much hours for
Right.
this training session. So I may put in the time, but not get it on my record.
Correct. You see, because before the school year closes, they should send out a list of what will be offered for the summer.
Yeah.
And so when that list goes out, it would be good if it would also include the number of hours per sessions, so that you know, for this one I get 50, for here I get, and then I can look at it as a teacher and say, you know what, this one is more beneficial to me, so I will take this one. Or you know what, I need so many hours, so I will take this one because I will be short. Or I can take A, B, and C,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But doesn't happen, and we've been asking, and so we'll see.
So
how
what
it goes.
happens at this point?
We meet with them on Monday because we need to know
Yes.
what the amendments would be.
Yeah.
So we have to have that. We will have that meeting on Monday, and depending on the outcome, then we will have to make some decisions as to the way forward.
Now, Senator Smith, just to be clear, aren't you a part of the education advisory committee or something that has been assembled with a group of persons, educators? Your role with the union, because I'm trying to figure out if there's any other way of knowing how the amendments have come forward, if there's been any other informal consultation that has taken place.
Well, no, not that I'm aware of. I'm also a part of the NCE.
The NCE, thank you,
Okay,
yeah.
which we spoke about earlier. We haven't gotten it either.
So the NCE, who will sign off on these amendments after the meeting with the BNTU, which you're also a part of, you've not also gotten any
No.
indication as to the amendment there.
So, and it was through that council that I was aware of
That
these
there
4
will be
amendments that will be coming up.
And that you're meeting after the
And then I
after the
asked,
union
and I
meeting.
said, could you indicate what those will be?
Uh-huh.
And then the minister said, well, it's a Christmas break. He said, and contract. He said, but I don't remember what the other two are, but I can remember those two for sure. And that is how I was able to then inform my council that this is what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then I reminded them, I said, listen, we were to have a meeting in the middle of November to review this process and see what would be the next steps. We have not had that meeting. What are we waiting for? You are going to be having some amendments now. Where is BNTU in this process? Yes, we're going to meet with BNTU. When are we going to meet? Because if you are saying that the NCE and the NCTVET will be meeting on this date, then we have to meet before that date. You can't meet with us after the fact and you say that you are consulting.
Yeah.
Because if you meet with them before, they would have signed off. Why are you meeting with me after that? There's no reason to meet with me after that because you would have signed off on it already. And so that was when, I was told by Dr. Bob, okay, well, we'll shift because yes, it makes sense. It's true what you're saying, and so we'll shift. But we'll just be the first one, and they'll be the second one. So hopefully, at that meeting, we are able to come to some understanding that it would be best to put out some of these things. Except if we find out that what it is that they are proposing to amend is how should I say, amenable to us.
But how do you know that if you are a membership organization? I mean, how will you be able to make a decision on this? But this has always been a challenge. And I want to be, I remember previous conversations with the Minister of Education himself. He always spoke of the extended time that it takes because you try to stay true to your membership by going back and consulting, making sure they're on board. So if there's a teacher in Sartaneja that has a concern, they have an opportunity to voice it. So how do you go into a meeting about amending the education rules and walk out saying yes or no, these are acceptable to us?
Well, this has been a live issue now since the summer.
Yeah.
So we've had several meetings with our membership. We've had a round of membership meetings where we are actually on the ground in each district consulting with our teachers. So we know what their concerns are.
Yeah.
And so that gives us an indication as to what would be amenable to them.
Yeah. On the contract issue at least. Yeah.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, we understand that the Council of Management is the decision-making body.
Yeah.
So you get your info from your teachers, from your members, and based on what they're saying, then you
can gauge more or less.
Right, a gauge as to say acceptable, not acceptable, and then you work between those two extremes. And so that is what, in these cases, that is what we would have to do, depending on how the amendments look. If they are not within that range, then we have to go back to our membership and say, listen, we don't have your worst case or your best case scenario. This is something totally different. We have to come back to our membership. And that has to be tabled then to the ministry to say, listen, we don't have this mandate. We have to go back to our members. And then we'd have to call an emergency meeting quickly. And teachers would then have to be the ones to say, listen, this is of interest to me. It's short notice, but I have to be there and make the effort to be there.
So that's the question I'm getting at. So if you go into this meeting on Monday and you find out what the other two amendments are, and it's something that you say, you know what, we need to consult membership. We need to be sure that they are on board with this because they may approve it, or they have concerns. But will you be able to stop a ball that's already rolling? I mean, you have the meeting with the NCE right after. It seems that it's just going to continue forward with or without your approval.
And I think one of the important things that we have to note is that the members, most of the members who sit on NCE and NCTVET are not persons in the education field. So I'm not saying that they don't know about education.
Yeah.
But the effect of what we will be doing, sometimes you might have legal experience or training. So you can read a law, you can read a rule, and you can look at it and say, okay, legally this is correct, the wording is fine, everything. But the implications for me, the teacher, is what you won't understand because you don't do that job. And so taking these things to NCE and NCTVET, while persons there know about education, we have to have our children trained in skills and we have to this, they know those general things, but they might not fully understand how these changes would impact our teachers.
How they're executed. Yeah.
Right.
And that is the concern, because again, there are only a few of us who are around the table who are actually educators. So we would be able to, we would have a better insight as to the impact of these things on our teachers.
Well, it would seem that when it comes to making decisions and stuff like that that do directly affect people at that level, it would seem necessary, to most people, that you would need to include them as a stakeholder from the very beginning. So it's concerning and surprising that perhaps when you have an important meeting coming up on Monday, that there's a lack of information or other sort of logistical errors. So how do you what's looking forward, what would be the best case scenario then for the union?
And that is why it always seems as if though we're fighting. Because eventually that is what it boils down to. You have to, try to use some of your might to get, which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. If you talk about us being stakeholders and partners in education, then we should not have to be fighting to get our foot in the door.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, there's some sort of information passed on between today and tomorrow. That's the time that you have left.
Right.
I don't want to lose the opportunity to talk about the Christmas break issue, though, because I know more than anybody else, parents are like, do they have 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Is this always going to be the trend? And it's an interesting scenario, actually, because we have been giving 3 weeks vacation for Christmas when the rules actually allow for 2. Am I right in my interpretation of that?
It depends on how Christmas Day falls.
Okay.
So if it falls after the Wednesday, then the vacation begins the week before, the Monday before. And so this year it falls on a Wednesday. The rule doesn't say if it falls on a Wednesday. It speaks to
After or before.
After or before.
And so then if we go by the way the rule says, when we look at the calendar, then it would mean that classes would have been held up until the 20th, I believe.
Right, the 20th of
And then
December.
you begin classes begin vacation on the 23rd. That would give us just 2 weeks. But as you said, we have been accustomed to having 3 weeks for Christmas break, and that was the thing. It
was a tradition that was maintained.
Precedent, as they would say, and so that was what we raised. And so again, despite the fact that the way the rules are written, and when you go through them and you read them and you follow your calendar, it would be 2 weeks indeed. But again, as per usual, we have not been enforcing the rules. And then you come suddenly and you say, okay, this year, that's it. It creates some issues because, schools have made their calendars, everything have been put together because you have been accustomed to these 3 weeks.
And even parents, they've planned their Christmas.
They've planned their Christmas, they've bought tickets to go away to be with family, so it was a concern.
And so it was undone.
Right, the memo. Memo said 3 weeks, but now we have to make it legal.
And now we're going to formalize what's going to happen with Christmas break. Either you'll clarify the rule with more detail or just maintain
the 3 weeks. And hopefully that is what will happen. We'll maintain the 3 weeks.
Well, that is to be seen on Monday, I suppose. Go ahead.
I think, to your question earlier, as I had said before, we will see how Monday goes, and depending on the response that we get on Monday, then we will determine what needs to be done next. Because there can always be challenges.
2019, we looked at a number of issues, and this is just one. I remember starting off the year looking at the hardship allowances and the challenges that were taking place there. I think the story of the teachers from Grand Creek is just etched in everyone's mind as to how grateful we need to be for easy access to a workplace. Can you give us an update on how things are going with that? Because that was a priority issue early in this year.
We still have some schools who are not satisfied with the category that they've been placed in, because there were some changes to the categories. So they were looking at the fact that in some areas, they have better streets now, or better highways, or better roads, a little bit more access to transportation. Some areas have school buses, but they are not looking at the fact of how early teachers have to leave from home.
Yeah.
Some of them leave home at 6 o'clock in the morning. They get back home at 6 in the evening. The fact that you have to take your cold lunch to school. All of these other things. There's no hospitals or centers around. These kinds of things. And so some of the categories were changed. Keeping in mind that when we sit around that table, there are other partners there with us. And so there are 3 of us from union, and then we have about 3, 6, and 9 more persons who are there. So everything goes to a vote. So we are in the minority. And so some of the changes our members have not accepted. And what we've said to them, or what we've agreed to at the joint staff committee level, that if any school doesn't agree with the category that they've been placed in, that they could write to the CEO, and the committee would then review based on what they write. So you have to write and give us your scenario.
Yeah.
Because we have to understand that some of the persons who sit around these tables and make these decisions are persons who don't know these areas. They don't know what our teachers go through on a daily basis to get to and from school. But they are the ones, or we are the ones making the decisions. Hence the reason I have embarked in visiting every school if possible, so that I can see firsthand what our teachers are going through. That when I speak, I can say I know for sure that Marlene has to walk through more than water. She has to walk 6 miles, that kind of thing, because we've been there.
Yeah.
And so that has been a concern. How can persons who don't know the area, some of our general managers don't know or haven't been to their schools, to some of their schools. So, so how can you sit and say you deserve to be a category 1 or a 2 or a 3 when you've not been to those areas? So these teachers now have a second chance to write in, explain their situations, every little detail. The committee will then review, and hopefully we can get our managements and our ministry to then, see what it is that they are saying and make a change to the category that they've been in.
Yeah, and there's another thought that crossed my mind in terms of hardship, because yes, we definitely do see the scenarios where people are trudging through mud to get to the workplace and spending a full week there. But there are also other rural areas that, yes, there may be road access, but transportation and the time means that they go for 12 hours or more for the day. In other words, you can't catch an 8 o'clock bus, you have to catch a 6 o'clock bus. And you can't come home on the 4 o'clock bus if school finishes or 3. You have to come home at the later bus. And so, yes, you have access to transportation. Are those also included? Because that's looking at an extended time on the job, which also has financial implications to the teachers, babysitter, who takes the kid to school, all these other things.
And again, we've said to them, we can't be strict. It is difficult for us to use 1 or 2 situations to say this is what hardship looks like.
Yeah.
Because you might not look at that as hardship, but that is hardship. I have to leave I am up at 4 in the morning. I have to prepare my food to leave for my children because I teach in a rural area. My children are in town, that kind of, so all of those things. But again, some of the persons do things as adding to hardship or as reasons to classify as hardship. And so those have been the arguments that we've had. I mean, when some of these places, you have 2 buses going or 3 buses going.
That's right.
And they leave at 11, they leave at midday, they leave at 1 o'clock. So how will you catch, and especially on paydays, because remember this is tied to your payday. So if you get a half day or you dismiss at 2:30, and you're on the highway, for example, James bus comes every hour. So you dismiss at 2:30, the bus passes at 3:30.
Yeah.
By the time you get to town, it's 4 o'clock, almost 4:30. Banks will almost be closed. You can't get to the bank and the credit union and the BL, and you can't do any of those things. And so those are things that we say to them, if the teachers are given the time that they were being given before, it will lessen the absenteeism from schools, because now I can say to my teacher, listen, you have this half day to go and do your business. So don't come here next week and ask me for Monday to go to my baby school to check on the report card or or to check on something, because you have this time. Do all of those things at this time.
So that's being reassessed, the hardship.
for a few of them who have written in. There are a few schools who have written in who are not satisfied.
Yeah.
Some schools, you know, it's funny because there are some schools that we were fighting for to keep where they were. And then when you spoke to the principal or some of the teachers, well, you know what, miss, yes, we were given a half a day, but you know what, we've not been taking it, you know, we go the whole day, so it really doesn't matter to us, we are okay. And here we are. And then there are some who are fighting for the half day, and that was taken away from them.
Yeah.
So we do have some who are satisfied, and we have some who are not satisfied.
All right. Well, we're going to be closing off 2019, and clearly you have some important meetings coming up, and we'll see what those education rule amendments will look like. But looking forward, you know, I know that there's a lot of strategy involved in terms of what you want to achieve as a union. What are some of the priority areas we're looking at as we move into 2020?
We are currently going through our constitution, doing a review of that. There's a plan in place. We have an officers seminar coming up in December, you know, where we'll be looking at the union as a whole, you know, reviewing our theme that we had for our convention, you know, being bold, being resolute, and see, you know, how we've been with that. Sort of a review of what we've been doing and what we need to do, an action plan going forward. And we also need to look at a strategic plan, because the one that we had, you know, that has concluded, and so we need to have another one now for the next 5 years or so. I think we also need to look at, review our vision and our mission, and see if it is that, you know, there needs to be any amendments to our vision as a union. You know, have we passed where we are now, and do we need to put a new vision in place for the union? Next year we celebrate our 50th anniversary as a union, and so that is a huge thing for us. And so we are hoping that early in the year we can start with our celebrations, leading up to July 20th when we celebrate our 50th anniversary. And we are hoping that we will have partners who will see it fit to partner with us, you know, as we showcase 50 years of BNTU, you know, as we showcase what we've done for our members, for our country, and hopefully help us, you know, joining us and celebrating with us those 50 years. Because 50 doesn't come so easy, whether you're celebrating years of life or celebrating anniversary as an organization. It doesn't come easy, so it has to be celebrated.
So we will definitely look forward to that in 2020. Thank you for coming in and giving us this update, and we'll definitely pay attention to what unfolds on Monday.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. And may we take the time to wish our teachers, you know, compliments of the season, and we trust that all will be well over this Christmas break. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking to representatives of NAPA about their reopening. So please stay tuned.